Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Starseeds and Lightworkers Collective here on Quantum Portals. Welcome to our podcast. And, well, what can I say? Today is July 1st. So if you are Canadian, happy Canada Day. And, oh, there we are. Hi, Stephen. How are you? Here he is. So I was actually about.
Okay, there we go.
There we
Now,
go.
all
How are
right.
you doing? Yeah, so no problem. So I was actually about to come here and do this show tonight, like on my own, because I was like, okay, I don't see Stephen. Where is he? So I guess that's about it. But he's here. He's here with us tonight. So tonight we have
Wait,
Mr. Stephen Bassett, and he
yeah,
is. Oh,
good.
how you doing, Stephen? There you go. There you go. And he is at the head of Exopolitics, and he is going to be speaking with us tonight about exopolitics and about disclosure and about a lot of the research that he's been doing over the years. He's been at it for a very long time, for decades. And so I am absolutely over the moon that we have someone who is so experienced in this matter and has taken the mantle to help spread this message and to spread it far and wide. And so it is really without further ado that I introduce to you a pillar and a real wisdom keeper in this topic of UFOs and aliens and our place in this cosmos. So thank you, Stephen, for joining us. How are you doing this evening?
Not too bad. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. I think I'm just going to ask my tech to bring your volume up just a bit. If you can bring it up just a bit. Yeah.
I can bring it up here. Your call.
Yeah, okay. No, it's fine. I think we're good.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right.
So, how are you doing on a day today? I was just saying to our Canadian viewers that today is Canada Day, and I know in a couple of days it'll be July 4th. So, it's going to be a very interesting time, July 4th. I think there's a lot going on. But for those, I mean, I don't see how people who are watching the show don't know you. Like, I mean, you are the top of the line when it comes to this topic of exopolitics and UFO disclosure. But in the event that there are new people who don't know anything about you, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into this field of research?
By the way, congratulations on Canada Day.
Thank you.
I love the country. I haven't been up in a while, but I've been there a number of times. Hope to go back and speak post disclosure to some fine Canadian audiences and try to explain to them what the hell's going on. No, I just made a choice to become an activist back in 1995,
Okay.
which is basically to serve. I mean, you could go work for a soup kitchen or, you know, help any number of charities, but I decided, no, I want to be an activist in an issue where you're definitely serving because there's no money. Uh, there might be a little, but it's very hard to come by. So
Okay.
as an activist, there's zero. So I launched in it. Now, it was the right decision. I didn't think 30 years later that I would still be, well, anticipating the goal of the activism, this activist movement, which I sort of defined. No one had really defined a goal for this movement, which for most of the first 80 years was research and doing studies and going out and checking encounters and what have you, and then trying to get the press to cover it or maybe writing a book. It was pretty much all research. It was very, very little activism at all. And what was not really formalized. But it was, I think the people that engaged this issue starting in the late 40s, 50s, 60s, that was an interesting time, certainly the years after World War II, when I think a lot of Americans thought if we can demonstrate this is true, our government will certainly acknowledge it, right? Wow, that's incredible. Thank you. We're looking at that too. But what they didn't know is that the government had made a decision already as early as 1947 that until such time as the government felt it was in the best interest of the country, which really means the people that run the government, this would be not only classified but unacknowledged. In other words, you want to know about our nuclear submarines, that is classified. You get a little information about that and leak it, you're going to prison. But the government doesn't unacknowledge that. In other words, a government doesn't say there's no submarines out there. So what are you talking about? I mean, it's that simple. On this issue, the highest classified of anything in government, pretty much early on, not only is it classified, but according to the government, doesn't exist. And that is what made this one of the most extraordinary 30 years in the history of the country. I'd say 30, 80 rather years. Extraordinary for me because I've been involved in the last 30. And so that was the dilemma. The government is not going to ignite there's anything here to study or talk about or write about. So sorry, you're wasting your time. And if you really start to get close to things or what have you, we'll intervene. If we need to threaten, we might do that. And that's pretty much how it got started. By the time I got in 95, there was an activism and a movement of some definition was starting to take shape. And Dr. Stephen Greer gets majority of the credit for that because in the late 80s, he started engaging this issue aggressively. And because he was a contactee, he wasn't shy about going there. And so he was taking government people because he was a respected emergency doctor. I think he'd probably retired by then and was now living in Virginia, but whatever, and pretty sharp. And so he had credentials, and he was taking people out from the government to do CE5s, what he eventually called that, which got the government's attention and got him. I think it was a case of, look, I don't know what this guy is doing, but let's bring him in and chat. Okay. He's not somebody we can just dismiss out of hand, and which was true. And so they started engaging him and having meetings, and that got him going. And he started then doing what are clearly activist things. The preeminent one of the time was, of course, his 2001 May 9th press conference, where he brought in 15 witnesses to speak to 200 media. That room was packed. I was there.
Yeah.
And then another 50, 60 on tape that they could then watch later, all talking about this happened, that happened, this happened. They had taken some of these people up on the hill, making some rounds. And every one of them said during their 5 or 6 minutes where they spoke to the press in the main ballroom, the National Press Club, where my office is, by the way, the National Press Building, that they would say the same thing under oath. This is 2001. And so that, so he, from late 80s, late 80s, 1980s up to that, he was really, I think, the key activist. I jumped in 95. I was not really aware of Greer when I did that, but I soon became aware of it. And I helped a little bit with that event. I was there. But even at that point, what was the goal? In other words, I think in his mind, the goal was let's get the information out. Let's get the information out. But I think that also it was the government needs to yield on this. All right. So in a sense, the goal was somewhat similar to what I ultimately, from the beginning, wanted to do. And so, but what I found out, what I understood as I got in the first 3 or 4 years was while there was kind of a goal, it wasn't really clearly defined. It wasn't out there in a way that people could go, oh, yeah, that's what we want. I'm going to help, right? That kind of thing. Build a movement. In order to build a movement, you have to have the issue has to be important and true. It needs to be clearly stated so that anybody can get it. You don't have to have a PhD or something to understand what the movement is. There have been major movements like that in our history. In the 20th century, certainly the Civil Rights Movement wanted the Civil Rights Act. Couldn't have been clearer. Women's suffrage movement wanted the right to vote. What's simpler than that? But we didn't really have that defined. And so my earliest contribution was in those couple of years, besides writing some articles and stuff, I said, look, we need a clearly defined goal. That is which is the fundamental achievement, which then takes us where we want to go. And it means the government needs to tell the truth. They need to acknowledge it. All right. Okay, fine. They say there's nothing there. So, what do you do about that? But I came up with two phrases. One, let's don't call this a UFO cover-up. Let's call it a truth embargo, which is really what it is. It's illegal, like the Cuba embargo is legal. It's a legal policy used in wartime and elsewhere. where a cover up is illegal, and it basically wasn't illegal. Irritating, wrong perhaps, it wasn't illegal. So let's come up with something that doesn't accuse the government of being a criminal. Everybody in it that's associated with this issue. That's not how you make friends. So let's call it truth embargo. Okay. And then the goal is to end the truth embargo. And what do we call the end of the truth embargo? Well, in other words, how it has to end. All right. Not just casually, not because somebody just sort of acknowledges it in a column in the New York Times. It is an issue of such magnitude, such importance, such transcendence that in order to properly move forward, the head of state, the president, the prime minister, the dictator, whoever the hell is the head of state, has to really confirm it rather, to their people. Period. Could be an executive order, could be a presentation, and then of course immediately all kinds of government things would follow. It has to be that, and I call that disclosure with a capital D, a proper noun, an event. It could happen in 4 or 5 minutes. I set off a whole wave of confusion because small d disclosure and capital D disclosure it's all being used different ways. And people got kind of confused, but I've done well over 1,000 interviews, probably heading towards 2,000 interviews since then, pounding that issue out there. Should have written a book, whatever. There's a lot of ways to get the message out, but I wrote the podcast Revolution. And the message was, this is not going anywhere, and we're wasting an enormous amount of our lives trying to prove something the government's already proven, trying to tell people about something the government already knows, right? And not being able to really engage the issue and the material and the evidence because the truth embargo is still in place. Therefore, it has to end. Therefore, we have to have confirmation from the president, and that is disclosure with a capital D. He'll either go first or he'll follow another head of state who is the disclosure head of state. That would be bad. And so with respect to our president, as I've said hundreds and hundreds of times, because I don't get invited to anything over there, it's amazing. You don't go first, you're going to be second, and you're not going to like being second. And so that has been the shaping of my work from the beginning, moving forward. And so I did whatever I could with minimal funds to advance the fundamental activist goal, which is end the truth embargo and get disclosure. I didn't have the money I would have liked to have because making money apparently was not part of my lifestyle prior to this. I had limited resources. I had modest credentials. I had not had some incredible life, but I knew people that did, and now I'm colleagues with some of them. So off we went, 30 years. Did I think it would take 30 years? No. Did we come close a couple of times? Yes, really close once. But am I surprised that the most classified issue in the history of the human race that will trigger the most profound event in the history of the human race was not going to be easy to, how would you say, resolve and get the government to yield on it? I know I shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
There are a lot of movements in the past that took a lot longer than this, but we're in our 80th year. And every indication that I see indicates that we're going to get the announcement from the president this year, more likely sooner than later, meaning it could be next week. I mean, it's literally hanging fire and could go either way. And that's where we are.
Okay. Wow. I'm just sort of sitting here and I'm riveted to the spot because I'm like, oh my God. I'm just sort of geeking out here.
Okay.
But I remember seeing you when they showed the press club, and I remember you speaking at the press club and putting your case forward, and that I met you about, I think in 2015 when you came to Canada and you had done a tour. And you had done a tour across Canada, and it was the first time I was meeting you, and we were all talking. And I think we were with Mr. Paul Hellier at that time. I think that that's where I remember meeting you then. Now, I remember at the time, because people who know this show, I've been following this whole thing with my mom since I've been 8 years old. So this was something that I'd always had, and it was something that I'd always followed. I'm in my 50s. So, so it's been a long time. And when I look back on how this topic has evolved, It has evolved slowly but surely. And, I think we're all one of those people who would, be watching something and then all of a sudden you'd see a documentary about UFOs and you'd be like, oh my God, get a VHS tape and, run around and let's just film it and let's tape it and all that kind of stuff. And I remember doing that a lot of times,
Yeah.
and
Right.
those are the fun times, especially in the 90s. And I think, and I'd love to get your opinion on this. I think that me too. I didn't think it was going to take as long. However, I think there are a couple of factors that made the change possible, and one of them was the technology. And by technology, I mean when you had YouTube come online. When YouTube came up there, YouTube now opened up the channel. You weren't just sort of sitting here waiting with a VHS and like, oh my God, let me go. No, you had people who were able to film this and actually show it. Then you had the smartphones, and the smartphones being able to film all these types of things now put the power in people's hands. So, there's a lot of stuff going on. And at the same time, I think that while maybe a lot of people felt like you brought up and you said, well, it has to be something that's important to people. And in the 90s, yes, it was important to people, but I think right now, and you could agree or disagree, I think right now people are very, very upset with their governments. They're upset with everything going on. And I think there's a crumbling of faith in any kind of institution. And I think that people are turning around and saying, you know what? You're not only hiding all this other stuff, you're also hiding about UFOs as well. So UFOs and a lot of other things what the governments are going through and what they're hiding, people are looking to chip away at that and are looking to say, you owe me truth on a whole bunch of topics. And there's also
Sure.
the evolution of people who are now, but back in the day when I would talk about UFOs, people would be like, oh my God, she's crazy, and walk away, literally. And now you have people who are like, yeah, UFOs, okay. And I don't get the same kind of shock value or the same kind of tinfoil hat type of approach that I used to get, let's say 10, 15 years, 20 years ago. How do you feel? Do you feel that YouTube and the smartphone, where people are able to actually, take the power and film things, is the reason why it's gained a lot more momentum at this point?
That and much more.
Okay.
The truth embargo is one of the most extraordinary things I think any has ever happened in this world. And I know it sounds like a lot, but nothing compares to it that I'm aware of. In that, for 80 years, all of the what we'll call democratic states, relatively democratic states with substantial freedoms, along with the major ideological, somewhat dictatorships, um, made a decision that they would deny the existence of something that was literally being seen all the time by people all over the world, right? Obviously, in the 1940s and 50s, it was a little easier to do that. I'm not saying it's always been hard, but they set out to keep this under control. It was a national security decision on the part of most nations. I think the dictatorships had their own reasons. And I get it. I mean, ETs, it's 1947, 48, 49. We just had a world war. More importantly, it was clear that nuclear weapons were about to become a thing, along with the missiles and the whole nine yards. And I get it. And then as we move forward in time, and this is one of the most important aspects of the last 80 years, the human race actually decided to go all out in its history of weaponizing everything and killing and blowing up everything, and decided to have a nuclear arms race that would literally put the entire civilization at risk. It's an act of arrogance and hubris that even the great empires of old, I think, couldn't touch. So we had a nuclear arms race, which locked down the truth, the truth on the ET presence. It was just something they just could not, they didn't want to screw with, given they were facing down nukes every year, more and more. There were 86,000 nuclear weapons in the world in the mid 80s. Now it's down to about 15, 18, 19,000, but they're faster, bigger, mer, whatever. Still, it's the end of the game if it happens. And so for 80 years, they managed to do this without, by and large, having to round huge numbers of people up and kill them and hang them or make them disappear or put out enormous propaganda campaigns. Um, England, Spain, France, United States, which are essentially, free speech nations, and others, somehow were able to do something that I consider almost impossible, thinking back, and that is that there's no here, there's no there, there's no ETs here. It's not real. It's swamp gas. It's a bad photo. It's this, and then of course they did all the things they could to contain it, stigmatize it, create an intellectual ghetto so wealthy people would not invest in it, or academics would not study it, and just shut everybody out. They've done this before,
Yeah.
but not on this scale, and not on something that literally is going on all the time. And so the citizen world was building up this huge cache of docs and sightings and images and so forth, just building and building and building slowly at first until now it's massive.
Yeah.
Without even getting into
Yeah.
what the government knows, what the civilian world has created is a
Exactly.
massive matrix of evidence.
Yeah.
90% is
It's a
true.
glacier almost.
This was an extraordinary thing, but all and as far as hubris is going, speaking of hubris, when the tech revolution begins and the internet comes up and the email thing comes up, they said, no, and we can still keep this going. And then when uh, bulletin boards and other ways of people mass communicating with each other develop, no, we're still going to keep this on board. And then you have the rise of well, the net just keeps expanding, more and more access, more and more people, hundreds of thousands of UFO websites. They're thinking, now we can still keep this going. And then comes broadcast, where radio stations are going to broadcast on the net, reaching huge audiences. They kept it going. And then comes ultimately the broad podcast revolution. Uh, Millions and millions of podcasts have been created. Still, a huge number are active at any given time. And again, with no restriction, really, anybody can talk about anything. They said we can still keep this going. Uh, it was amazing. And even now, it's not done yet, though it's under a massive siege of thousands of podcasts, hundreds of thousands of websites, Medium articles by the thousands, none of which are negative. They're all pretty much positive, or at least they're treating it legitimately. And they're still clinging to it. It is one of the greatest stories, I think, in human history in a lot of ways. If I had a bunch of money, I'd make the documentary called The Truth Embargo, which is playing the whole thing from day one right up to the present. And that has been the movement we've been involved in. The most unusual active movement of all time, the most heavily contained and supported by the largest number of people and governments in the world of all time. And we're about to win. Finally, with the help of all of this, every podcast, every sighting, every study, every organization that was formed, every conference, everything that citizens did. Now, prep to major politicians, parties, institutions, and so forth now getting involved, putting even more pressure. Though even then, they still will not let this go. And so hopefully after disclosure and the historians get in there and start parsing it out, we'll actually figure how the hell did they pull it off?
Yeah.
And then the message to the world would be, all you people that live in nations with speech and some freedoms, don't ever let this happen again.
Yeah. Exactly. Absolutely. Amen to that. Wow. That really should be, carved in a rock somewhere and put up for sure.
Or in a podcast.
On a podcast.
Carved into a
Exactly.
podcast.
Exactly. But and I agree with you 1,000%. And one of the things that I've seen from a podcast perspective and also from a spiritual perspective, and I know that it may not always sort of mesh, but the thing is that one of the things that I'm seeing, especially with people talking on this show, when they talk about astrology and they talk about the channeling and they talk about all the other stuff that's more the woo side, that sort of thing, a lot of people are also bringing that's also on board as well. So when you have people like Bashar talking about stuff about how he's channeling Bashar, Daryl Anka, and you have all these people talking about it, even if it's not something that's sort of nuts and bolts, it's definitely, in my opinion, adding more wind into the sail because it's pushing the the narrative forward. And then from an astrological point of view, a lot of people are saying that, that the way things are lining up literally is that we are at a standstill here. We're at a crossroads, if actually rather, where this information has to come out, because we are at a point in human history where this is where we have this big change. And the month of July, if you want to know, but the month of July astrologically is a very, very heavy time where this type of information is bound to come out and to really break the dam, as it were. So there's a lot of it coming on. It's not just the MUFON and the investigators and everybody else. It's everybody from all aspects that are coming in. So I feel that that has a bit of weight to add to it. But when I talked about how people, you talked about how you couldn't understand how were they able to sort of keep this going. And one of the things that I'm often reminded of is the outgoing speech that Eisenhower did about the military industrial complex, and about how he said that group grabbed this topic because they wanted to see it more from a, not so much from the aliens, and because they know, but the thing is, it's about how do we keep this type of technology for ourselves. So it's more of a technological superiority that they wanted to use this information, and that's
It
the
was
reason
many
why.
things.
Yeah, and there's a reason why a lot of it. But would you say that the military industrial complex is a big part of why this truth embargo has lasted so long, in addition to other stuff, but in particular this one?
Yeah, he knew there, he knew about Roswell, almost certainly.
Yeah.
I guess it's incredible to think he didn't. Um, and obviously, I think he factored that into that statement. But even without ETs, uh, it was clear that that World War II, which we won by massing a huge technological industrial um, effort, unprecedented in history, and we won the war. And when that war was over, America was on its way to becoming the richest nation in the world, and there was an intense marriage between our highest level industrial companies and so forth and the government, right? And they won the war together. And he already, I think, was starting to see by 60, certainly when he's leaving, that well, that amalgamated power of major companies, particularly defense companies with high tech resources and what have you, and the government was very likely not going to go well. And the fact that I don't know if they had offloaded any of the ET tech and technology stuff to the contractors by 60. I'm sure they were thinking about it. So this issue, that was going to be again the provenance of deep secret government and the military, defense contractors, right? And so big things are happening, and he sees this power coming together, vortex, and he warned against it. Uh, well, he was right, and in spades. And believe me, it became one of the most significant things that's happened in this country, and to the extent it's also happening in other nations, even dictatorships, where the government and the industrial output, particularly in terms of weaponization, are married up. And it's put the world literally at the end of possible extinction, in a sense, civilization ripped to pieces to the point where hundreds and hundreds of years before it recovers. Um, and so he was absolutely right. So now, did it play out exactly as he might have worried about? It could have been worse, I assure you. But in any event, um, we, in general, we messed up the opportunity of World War II. It presented for the world to get together and decide, look, we need to stop this. One and two was just, they were pretty awful wars, and for different reasons. In some ways, one was worse than two.
Yeah.
I mean, even reading about it, I get nauseous. And then and so forth. And of course, then the nuclear stuff was coming on board. They had a chance to say, look, no more. They didn't do it. And so they started the biggest arms race in all of history, which by 1986, there were 80 some thousand nukes, maybe 8 countries with 7 or 8 countries with nukes. Now I think it's 9. And we were living under a mutual assured destruction by then. if not sooner. And everybody was uptight, and everybody's future looked dubious. Apocalyptic movies and television shows and series were pouring forward as fast as the people could watch them because this whole idea of apocalypse of our own making is literally saturate our consciousness. And then when the Soviet Union collapsed, and there was this, perestroika and also very significant changes there that opened the door to maybe say, let's stop this. We blew that opportunity too and started another arms race. And so, in some respects, after those two massive wars in the first half of the 20th century, to have done what we have done as a civilization, one, if one is an impartial onlooker from outside of our world, say an extraterrestrial, looking down, maybe a team of 5 or 6 of them that are asked to judge the situation, I think they might say, you're about to get exactly what you deserve. You're too smart. You know too much to do this kind of stupidity. You've seen it all. You had the history. Ancient people didn't really have lots of history. They just started the next war, whatever the hell. And but we know all about it. We've studied these wars going back thousands of years, and of course, we know everything about the 20th century wars. And we still keep them up. We still beat the nukes, and we're on the verge of blowing everything up. And then we're looking at the biological weapons now, which are even more insidious.
Yeah.
We're going to weaponize AI. And so their view is like, you people have blown this, and you almost deserve what you're going to get. Now, the reason I say that is I happen to firmly believe that the entire era of this phenomena, this era starting in 47, I think there were a vehicle or two that got picked up prior to that, but didn't get a lot of press. And the fact that the ETs upped their engagement, broadened it, became ubiquitous almost, forcing the action, but never completely outing it, is connected to this. That, and I hope to God it's true, that the ETs feel as irritated by the action of nations and the human race in the last 80 years as I do, and many of my friends and colleagues, that this is cosmic stupidity. You almost deserve to blow yourselves up, but it would be a waste of a beautiful a civilization with great promise. Plus, the process will just ravage the environment, which has been ravaged many times before. But natural acts, in other words, things happen that have created untold destruction, killed billions of species, but we're going to do it to ourselves, okay? Which is an arrogance and almost an assumption of godlike powers. And I think they say no. We're gonna interfere here, intervene here,
Yeah.
and the evidence is absolutely clear that they've done that.
Yeah.
And that is not a message that is out there. I mean, I've had a little exposure to some of the members on Hill that are pushing this issue very, very hard. God bless them, but they don't see that bigger picture yet, because they're more than happy to vote for the next $1 trillion of defense and military aggression and war. So it's kind of tied together. So this makes this 80 years and its culmination unprecedented in history. And just to be a poor political activist involved with it at all is, just an amazing thing. And I try to feel blessed about that. I would have liked to have done more and had more, but I just didn't create the circumstances for that. But now we have major people with high credentials and PhDs and money and so forth, finally getting into the issue. The stigma's gone. They're creating foundations. They're creating activist groups. They're directly, working with Congress to pass legislation. All the things that should have happened 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, it's now happening. And I like to think I and all of my friends and colleagues that I've talked to and worked with all these years, some are well known, some are less known, were essential and bring it to the point where these very powerful people could finally step in and maybe finish this and get where we have to go. So as history goes, it was a hell of a 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I would definitely say that everything that you've done, because it takes many people, and it takes people from many different levels to be part of it. And so you have a very, very big part to play in it. I have to say, and I'm going to say it, I don't care what other people think. You have a very, very big part to play in it because you have the energy, you have the zeal, you have the intelligence, and you've you've demonstrated a much more, and I mean, look, I often come from the woo side, but I feel that you've come from a much more nuts and bolts serious side. And so people are not able to sort of like look at you and say, oh well, you're some flake and you're some tinfoil. No, you definitely have the rock hard and the cojones to turn around and say, look, this is what's really happening. So I give you that. You've earned that in spades as far as I'm concerned. Now then,
Thank you.
yeah, no problem. I should be thanking you because of everything that you've done. You're leading the way for generations to come back and to look back in history, and you'll be written up in history and be like, look, this guy, was the reason why we are where we are now, and that we
We'll
have.
see. We'll
Yeah,
see.
well, you'll
There's a
be
lot of
written up.
people
No, 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 you
jockeying
will be
for
written up.
position,
No, no,
and
no. I'm gonna have to say, I have to disagree with you. You're gonna be written up for sure.
yeah, we'll
Getting
see.
back to your comment, you made a comment a little while ago as you were talking about how like you weren't sure if this kind of information had been getting out to different type of industries. And from what I understand, Philip Corso, who did The Day After Roswell, talked about how a lot of the, he was involved, and he said, look, all this information was given to contractors and skunk works and all that kind of stuff, all these different companies to use it and to create technology. And I think this is the reason why I feel that this is why a lot of the information was kept hidden, because it was about information, it was about superiority, it was about technological supremacy, especially in terms of the military. And you're right, there's a lot of military industrial people that are involved in this and want to see it continue because it's money for them. People are very short-sighted, and I think that's, if I had to say what is the biggest Achilles heel for humans, is the level of self gratification. Like, I'm not even going to look at the future for my children or my children's children. I just want the cold hard cash now. And I think this is what drives people, unfortunately, because they know better. They're not dumb, they know, but they're like, yeah, but I can't help that extra wads of cash in my account. So I think, unfortunately, that's driving people. But at the same time, I think that, like you said, there is such a swell of movement of people saying, we know this is real and we're done with it. And I think what I see, and sometimes complain about the young kids today, but they're the ones who are also going to be picking up this mantle, because a lot of them are saying this is real as well. They're not just looking around and say, well, I can't be bothered with this because I have to go to work and pay my mortgage. The younger people are turning around and saying, we want this as well. This is, we don't want to see the planet being blown up. We don't want to see us being pit against other people. And so I think that we're also moving into a different stage in terms of consciousness on this planet. And if that sounds woo, then it's woo. But I think that the consciousness is changing on the planet, where people are tired of seeing it from just the nuts and bolts, and want to really have a much more, a connection with these beings, and a connection, and to say, we don't want the truth embargo. We want other things, because the truth embargo is one aspect of it. No, it's one aspect of his. And it's one aspect of what's going on. And I think that people really want a change in the world, and the change in the world will be accepting this, because we know that if we accept the help or working with these different beings that are piloting these ships, that we can transform this planet. And right now, I see a lot of people, like I said, losing faith in the governments around the world. And so they are facing people turning their backs on them and saying, we want something different. And I think my question to you is, when people are saying we want something different, do you feel that this is also going to be a part to play in how this whole matrix breaks down and we finally come up with it? How do you feel?
Hmm.
No?
It's a
Am I
big
being too
planet.
idealistic?
Eight, oh, it's 8 billion people,
Yeah.
right? And I can assure you that the vast, vast majority of that 8 billion are focused on one thing: living another day,
Yeah.
uh, either with shelter or without it, with all the food they need or without it, with water or without it, and so forth. Huge numbers. And even in the more developed countries, they're pretty much focused on that. Uh, civilization doesn't move forward based upon some sort of 50+% democratic agreement on anything. Science certainly doesn't work that way, and that's why it's so hard. So it's easy to overestimate what people want, what they don't want. It's a little easier to see what makes them mad because they go to the streets, they revolt, and so forth. And what we know right now is that, not surprisingly, uh, there have been 4 generations since World War II ended. Boomers, uh,
X.
generation, I think it was X,
Yeah.
then the millennials,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Zs.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to count the alphas. Basically, 4 generations. And all of them have lived under what is called mutual assured destruction, which is pretty universal. In other words, I'm sure there are countries where there are people that are living very basic and they don't even know about the nuclear arms race. But it's not a lot of people like that. It's pretty much everywhere. It's been out there for a long time. And so they're living under mutual assured destruction, a sense that it all going to come to an end here pretty soon. Um, but it's much obviously not like some meteor that's going to come and take out the world, where you can almost tell what exactly when it's going to happen and where it's going to hit. It's just you don't know, but it can happen anytime. And this level of anxiety has created an enormous amount of stress on the human psyche, on human experience, creating all manners of dysfunctions within people.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got the population situation, which is too many. We have far more than we can handle. And that population density and stress is creating a lot of stress in people. And then as governments fail to do what they need to do to be able to properly be governments and govern people in a righteous way, and continue to spend untold tens of trillions of dollars on every manner of defense and offense and weapons and everything else, leaving not enough money to just give people vaccinations and food, which is happening right now, and they're really dying in place. All right. So that has created a lot of stress. But in the democracies, the truth embargo has added its own stress because democracies thrive on trust. Trust is literally the blood of the body politic. As long as the trust is flowing, the body politic is doing well. But once it starts to dry up after a certain amount, the body politic dies. And so all these governments have been going along with the truth embargo as a major blow to trust on a daily basis. In other words, it's a lie they have to maintain every single day. They can't just say, yeah, it's not true. And then maybe 5 years later, they have to restate that. No,
Mm-hmm.
it's because the ETs are always there, always around. There's always engagement by the people, and they have to keep lying and doing that. And that has broken down trust. They've lied about a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And so when you put it all together, you've got a population that, in some of the cases, addicted to everything: food, drugs, but well, food, sugar, drugs, uh, gambling, pick it. I mean, and then all manner of psychic and mental stressors. Everybody's on all manner of medications in the modern world, and those that are in the less modern world, it's less that, more just food stress. They don't have the right food. They don't have enough shelter, and so civilization is really tormenting itself. That nations are tormenting the citizens. The leaders of nations are tormenting the citizens,
Mm-hmm.
in creating just one very unpleasant situation for human civilization circa the 21st century, since the birth of this relatively well-known gentleman in the Middle East. And not only that, there's always been strife in the world. There's always been pressure and whatever, but at no time in history has it been easier to find out all about it. In other words, it's all happening and we're all knowing it.
Mm-hmm.
We're all
Mm-hmm.
being hearing about it, seeing it. It's being put in front of us all the time. So this is not going to end well. It's just not going to end well. In the ancient times, yeah, some civilization, some empire would fall and it would be replaced by another, and then they would do pretty well, and then they'd be replaced by another. Overall, though, things were, plenty of resources, plenty of water and air, not that many people. Not now. not now. Oh no. We have weaponized everything we could weaponize in an effort to somehow protect ourselves from each country from the other. We're weaponizing AI right now, and that's a whole nother thing, which it's hard to even think about. Uh, and we're still weaponizing nuke weapons, weaponizing biological weapons. I mean, it's a friggin' disaster.
Yeah.
Now, if you can get resources together, which is why you have so many people that are literally driven obsessively by the need to acquire great wealth. It's not simply out of greed per se, always. It's just they know that the only thing that's going to give them respite and protection from this literally tragedy in motion, right? This disaster is wealth, protection, security, underground bunkers, all kinds of things that will give them a little more protection than the rest of the human race. And all of this has been represented in all kinds of sci-fi movies. It's coming up all the time. And so some crypto billionaire, it's not just, oh, I just want to have $1 billion, but hey, that money is going to keep me around after a great deal of the human race is gone. This is a science fiction novel being played out, an apocalypse story being played out in real time with real people in the real world. That's how I see it. I'm sure it's the reason I never married, never have kids. The number of people having kids is going down in many countries. And it's not simply because, oh, it's a pain in the ass. It is, and it costs too much. But they just don't have confidence that kids are going to grow up. I mean, this is harsh statements, but I'm telling you, you can easily find support for this thinking,
No,
but it's not something
absolutely.
that gets out a lot because it's depressing as hell.
Absolutely.
And that is what the prospect that ending the truth embargo that tells the whole world they're not alone in the universe and opens up the potential for communication with a number of advanced species that
Yeah.
don't particularly appear to be wanting to blow us all up has to happen. It
Yes.
has to happen as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
And so that's why there's no way I'm going to walk away from this. I
No.
mean, it doesn't get bigger than it is.
Yeah.
But the trouble is that, and that's why I'm a popular speaker. I can't, command stages and everybody's going, oh, this person's famous. No, I don't have those kind of credentials. My job as a popular speaker is to try to explain this in language people can understand to just regular people. I did two full speaking tours of Europe. I did a speaking tour of Australia. I did one up in Canada, and then basically I just ran out of money and couldn't do it. I'd love to do it again. I don't know because in a sense, my activism was about getting disclosure. And once we get disclosure, one could make a case, well, why are you still around? Right? What you got it. Okay, so it's time to retire. I don't want to do that. What I want to do post disclosure is to continue to hopefully give presentations and lectures to regular people, try to explain what just happened in language they understand and what's going to happen in the post disclosure world because they're not going to have access to a bunch of high level academic treatises where they get into high detailed or the results of massive AI supercomputer gaming that will be done by all the governments about how things are going to go. They're just going to be living in a post disclosure world. Apparently, there's ETs all over the damn place. We're not alone. And what? Well, that's where maybe they'll want to listen to me. We'll see.
Exactly. Well, no, I think that makes perfect sense. I think that what you're saying about how people are really feeling, and it's true, a lot of young people are saying, look, they're not having children because they're scared of the future. They're saying they don't want to bring kids into a
Yeah.
world that looks like it's going to blow shit up. So that is definitely
Go on.
clear, you know? So they're not doing that. And so that makes sense. And they're also saying, I have no money. So there's that too. So a lot of people just have given up and said, no, I'm not going to do this. But I do definitely hold steadfast to the idea that you're right. People are being stressed out by all these stressors, and I feel that people are saying, "I'm done. I'm done with the stressors. I'm done with it, being attacked. I'm done."
Some are saying
Some
that.
are saying that, but a lot of people, yes. If you're making 250,000 a year and you're living in New York City and you're having a good time, great. But a lot of people are not. A lot of young people are not having the same kind of options and
Yeah.
opportunities. And it's not even just the young people, but a lot of people in general are just saying, look, you have an increase in mental health issues. You have an increase in homelessness. You have a lot of people who are families living in a car. Like, I mean, there's problems, and so a lot of people are
And that's in
saying,
the US.
And that's in the
Yes, that's in the
US, in the West. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So a lot
right.
of people are saying,
Yeah,
"I'm done."
and those people that we look down on that are sleeping on the street, they would envy, right? I mean, there are people in a number of countries right now that would envy them.
Yes.
They would say, "Oh God, I wish there was a street I could fall asleep on."
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
the U.S. public is in a, it's in a state of denial, and it's lost perspective.
Hmm.
What happens overseas, I don't care. I don't give a damn. It's what's going on overseas is way worse than this,
Exactly.
but they don't have the power,
Hmm.
right, to influence things like
Hmm.
we do, because we do still have some rights here, but they do occasionally march on the Capitol. There's been a couple of government overthrows by Gen Xers,
Hmm.
not Gen Xers, Gen Zers,
Hmm.
but that is just nothing compared to the disruption that is coming if we don't make some serious steps. I mean, you're going to see things happening in other countries that you're going to go, in other
Whoa.
words, recently the
Yeah.
Iranian people decided they wanted express their displeasure.
Hmm.
They felt they had an opening. They went for it. They hit the streets, and the government slaughtered them, 10,
Hmm.
15, 20, 30,000 of them. There will come a time very soon, well, that would be a small thing, a
Hmm.
small event.
Hmm.
So again, who's doing anything, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's like, well, I can't run for office and, like, somehow establish some new policies and get them through. No, I can't do that,
Hmm.
right? But I can be involved in an activist movement that will change worldview like nothing else in history. And ultimately, worldview change is what allows anything good to happen,
Hmm.
right? You can't, you couldn't force everyone in the country to suddenly become really down with equality of races,
Hmm.
right? A lot of them simply had the change of worldview where they became open to the fact that, yeah, it is not the way to go. And so it was able to change.
Hmm.
Without worldview, nothing of what we'll call significant improvement is possible. And getting worldview is a very tricky thing. And in most cases, the government's resolved to force, meaning, you may not think this way, but after I threaten you and your family a couple of hundred times, you'll change your view. Well, no, that didn't work so well either.
Hmm.
We have before us the potential for the greatest worldview change in history that transcends anything that's happened. There have been a number of
Absolutely.
people that have shown up, religious people and so forth,
Hmm.
change the thinking of some individuals.
Hmm.
This is going to change to one degree or another the worldview of every living person on
Yeah.
the planet.
Absolutely.
And as you move up in structure and hierarchy, I think the amount of worldview change could be greater.
Hmm.
We're never going to get another opportunity like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you 1,000%. I think what I'm trying to say, though, is that I'm coming from a different perspective in a sense that I feel that people, and I mean, yes, we can talk about the West, and maybe I'm coming from a more sort of a Western perspective, but I do feel that what's important and what I brought up before about how we have a lot more communication. A lot more people are communicating one another, and people are know what's happening. Like, for example, what's happening with, I mean, I don't like getting politics on the show, but what's happening in the Middle East. I'll leave it at that. You know what I'm talking about. And, a lot
Oh,
of
yeah,
people
sure.
being slaughtered by one group by another. And I don't want to get into politics or take sides, but you know what I mean when I say the Middle East.
Mhm.
And a lot of people 30 years ago, I mean, because I'd heard about this kind of stuff 30 years ago, but there was really no way to sort of concretize it and say, okay, well, this I know for a fact is happening because it's not being talked about really in the news. And what they're saying in the news is really kind of, eh. But a lot of people are saying right now, I don't watch the news because I don't believe it. I know that I'm being lied to. A lot of people are
Mhm.
frustrated and saying that the reason why there are protesting, a lot of young people are protesting, is they said that we do not like what this country is doing to this group of people. And so there are a lot of people that are very angry. So a lot of people are getting access to this information. And I think that's helping to galvanize a certain amount. It may not be to the level that we would want, but I think that a lot of people are starting to say, something is happening. I hear the rumblings. I definitely hear it. And I think also the point that I'm trying to drive home is the fact that people are fed up with the status quo and are fed up with the day to day. And I feel that the real importance of disclosure is not even so much about aliens and okay, yes, that's a part of it, and that's kind of cool. But I think a big part of it is saying we have to change the way this planet is running because it's just not working. It's not working for me. It's not working for you. It's not working for that person up in Mumbai. It's not working for that person in Albania or wherever it is. In Africa, it doesn't matter. It's not working, and we know that there's something better. And so I feel that people may not have the full story about the whole connection between what's happening here and what governments are talking about with like with different alien groups, but I think they know enough to say, you know what, we're done. Like, we're done with this shit show. We're done, and we want something different. And the only way that's going to change is that if something, I mean, short of landing on a White House lawn, a lot of people are saying we have to have something bigger. This has to change. And I feel that that is where I feel the frustration is what's going to also drive that as well. But maybe you have a different opinion on that.
Well, there are three or four things that will dominate, right? Um, one, we have an asymmetric world. And asymmetry, by and large, is not in nature is never a good thing. 33% of the entire world's population live in just two countries. That is as asymmetric as it gets. All right. Um, and both of those countries are nuclear. The country, there's one country that has the largest land mass of any country on the planet. I mean, you literally could put, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 countries in there. And that's Russia. And it's a nuclear power, right? So all that land is just sitting there, not people in it, fine. So we have this asymmetry world just to start with. All right. And then in order, the impact of disclosure in the post-disclosure world will operate on a couple of levels. One is that as everyone comes to learn that there are other civilizations out there that are doing better than us, that have solved many of the problems that we have, that we like to solve in our sci-fi movies, but that's just a movie. We are then in a position to compare, right? Well, they're doing that. Why don't we do that, right? They're in good shape. We're not. And so you have this comparison, and that allows worldview to change, meaning, look, we need to go that direction. The second thing is we will probably get open contact after disclosure. Open contacts means third-party intervention. Suddenly we have a mentor, much smarter than we are, dropping a few,
Nuggets.
ideas putting a few ideas on the table. Then, why don't you do this? Why don't you go that way? I mean, we've never had that before, except religion is pretty much about creating these mentors. In other words, we can't help ourselves, but we believe in this entity that could help us by telling us what to do. And a lot of that is actually based on formal contact. I mean, contact with ETs going back thousands of years, but also it's also part of the religious faith and structure. Mentors, right? What do we do? How do we get rid of the nukes? I don't know. And then this, open contact that may be discussed. The major issues we face as a planet, they probably teach in their grade schools. All right, if they're as smart as we think they are. And by the way, if even this whole business about millions of years, that's ridiculous. There may be species that are a million years ahead of us, but they're not here. They could care less about us.
Yeah.
They're in another
Somewhere
place.
else.
We don't
Yeah.
even know where they are. The ones that are going to engage us are the ones that are closest to us, and there's plenty of indications that that's the case. So maybe 500 years,
Yeah.
even 1,000.
Yeah.
That's enough. Now imagine this. So they've had a 500 more years of technological advancement along the lines that we've had, which started in 1900, and just the tech curves just started turning up. They've had another 500 years of that, which includes another 500 years of AI. So they create AI, but now they've had 500 more years. Now, according to our experts now, we're probably going to destroy the world within about 6 or 10 years, ruin everything, but maybe not, because we don't have to screw everything up. We don't have to take everything and turn it into a disaster. Obviously, they've done that, but they've got 500 years of AI. So their understanding of the world and how it works their understanding of what happens on various planets. They know a lot. We don't know. Now, the question is, will they share it? Will they play mentor to us in open contact and provide information that could be very helpful to us getting out of this mess? Typically, in typical human fashion, they say, well, what? Yeah, they're going to take over and run everything, and then they'll force us into slavery, but that'll make things better. But that's anthropomorphic to the max.
Yeah.
Avoiding anthropomorphism is no easy task.
Mm-hmm.
I work very hard at it. Some people don't try.
Mm-hmm.
But this mentor or third party intervention, at least in terms of advice concepts, could very well be at hand within a short amount of time. So that's another factor. All right. And then there is simply the idea that it's possible to develop an advanced civilization that doesn't literally destroy the home that it evolved in. Right? There is a way forward because they've done it. All of that are key factors in worldview change that could go on in the minds of hundreds of millions, if not billions of people. And suddenly you have that view change pressing up against the views of the leadership. So if you have a leader that just doesn't get that, right? It's like, I'm old school. This is the way we do it, right? I'm going to screw everybody I can. I'm going to indulge myself. I'm going to put everybody at risk because I've got all kinds of emotional issues or what have you, which has plagued readers for, it's not nothing new. It's been around a long time. It almost seems like the more mentally ill you are, the more likely you can obtain power. This worldview is pressing up against them. And and not just 50,000 or 100,000 people that went to the street in Iran, millions and millions will say, your approach to life is no longer effective and you need to leave now. Mm-hmm. Here's the door. Don't let it hit you in the ass. And the leader will go, no, 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 no. I am way too special and way too important. I've got a lot of nuclear weapons or whatever. And then one day, a bunch of people just turn up and put them in a box and ship them to Kathmandu or something. Mm-hmm. I mean, the potential for the public to engage the leadership with a worldview change and really start swinging things around without having to have a revolution and guillotines and all of that stuff is there. But it requires a worldview change quite different than pretty much any that have taken place in the past. And disclosure of the extraterrestrial presence is in a level of magnitude that actually could probably do it. I don't know of anything that could do it. So that's what keeps me optimistic. That doesn't mean I'm going to start making long plans for the future. And actually, several reasons for that. But I'd like to be able to finish up my life with an optimistic point of view that, like, hey, things are probably going to work out okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, like I said, maybe I'm a little bit more, more frou-frou about the whole thing, but I definitely feel that if you would ask, because like I've said, I've been following this whole thing since I've been 8 years old. And I've seen it, from the late 70s, all the 80s, 90s, and I was following it, and it was always sort of something that you sort of kept very quiet and hidden. And it was always just sort of like something like, okay, it's cool. There's a sci-fi section over there. Go, knock yourself out. It was never really taken seriously. And I do find that right now there's something in the air. It's not based on science. It's not based on, or fact or anything. It's just that I feel that something's going on, and I feel that what you're saying, that it's not even so much of the tinfoil hats. It's just that everybody seems to be saying, yeah, something's up. This is going on. Now I want to dovetail this into this next comment into the movie Disclosure Day by Steven Spielberg. And when I did, I remember I'd asked you originally, and you decided to not do it, which is fine. When we did the show here on this channel, we made sure that we didn't do a film review. What we wanted to talk about, which was the basis of what we wanted to talk about, was not the film itself, because in my opinion, who cares? That's not the issue. It's a nice film. I saw it. It's nice. But that's not what the issue was. For me, the issue was, what is this film going to do to people? What is this film going to, irregardless of what my opinion is, how is this going to affect people? And that was the basis of the show. And so I think I'd like to ask you, not to do a review or all that kind of stuff, how do you feel right now, right here and now, with everything going on, and something magical, and not magical, but something very magnetic in the air? What do you feel the film by Steven Spielberg, Disclosure Day, can add or take away from the kind of work that you've been doing for the last 30 years? How do you feel about that?
Sure. I've given already quite a few podcasts,
Okay.
presentation on this, and yeah, and I don't do a review, and I'm not going to do one now.
Yeah.
Um, Here is, well, just for background, I deliberately didn't see the movie or watch any trailers. I mean, I saw a couple of pieces of some trailers, but I just turned them off. And I was successfully able to avoid almost any significant info about what kind of was going to be like. So that was good. And I was able to hold off because I wanted millions of people to see the film before I'm talking about it, right? Because that way they're more likely to get what I'm trying to convey. Because I wasn't going to review it, and that's still the case. So I waited about 10 days and I went and saw it at a 10 a.m. matinee on a Wednesday, which means I was the only person in this huge theater with the couches that go back, you know.
Yeah.
I'm there in the second row looking up at the screen, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So watch the whole thing. I literally cried at the end.
Yeah, me too.
Wow. Because the movie essentially was, what was Steven Spielberg going to say? Why did he made this movie not to make another movie? He's worth 7-8 billion bucks.
Yeah,
He
he
doesn't
doesn't
need to
need
make
he
another
doesn't need the
movie.
money. No, no.
Uh,
And he came out of retirement
and but
almost.
he
You know.
likes to, but making movies can be fun. But
Yeah.
uh, the history of this movie is clear. Uh, a decision was made, I think,
Yeah.
um, somewhere right around the time that the hearing started. Might maybe a little bit before, but right in there when things were really getting hot. I mean, he's got access to a whole bunch of people that can help him if he wants
Yeah.
to know what's going on. He can call up any number of individuals. So he knew things were really breaking hard, about to break hard, and they did. And so this idea is coming together. And then he announced there was going to be a movie. Okay, fine. I forget what year, but it's been a couple of years ago. And then he locked it down, which they sometimes do. Meaning, in other words, you're going to make a movie, and everybody, including the caters, are on an NDA. You say anything about the filming of this movie, and you're going to have a real problem. And then they pay him well. Okay, so the movie was locked down. We didn't know what it was going to be. Uh, the first working title, which you have to kind of do because you have to have something to refer to what you're doing, they went out and called it The Dish. Okay, and I'm going, okay. So that went on for quite a
The
while.
saucer. Ha ha ha.
And well into the development, they announced another working title, and that was Disclosure. And of course, the moment I heard that, I had a pretty good idea of what Mr. Spielberg had in mind. I mean, I know his history with the issue. It's unlike any other filmmaker, period. It's special and unique, and so I realized, okay, he sees what's coming. He's got a pretty good idea, and he wants to impact it in a positive way. And this movie is going to be for that purpose. All right. So uh, there was other things going on. There was a whole bunch of stuff that I was trying to do that didn't really go well, and life was hard, the usual stuff, but whatever. The issue was still moving forward, and most of it was happening in Washington, D.C. And then Disclosure Day, not Disclosure Day, but the Age of Disclosure drops. This was another project in
I
the
remember
works at
that.
the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah.
I think Spielberg probably knew about that. So Dan Farrow, he's not Spielberg, but he's a Hollywood guy. He's got the connections, the money, the agents, all that kind of stuff. And so he was able to put together a doc that our good friends and colleagues couldn't quite get to because it didn't have the contacts, the same level of contacts, and it didn't have the money. So this is kind of a Hollywood documentary, the first real one, frankly, ever done. Though Spielberg and J.J. Abrams, two super A-listers, did for the first time do a couple of documentary series on this issue, which was previous to the movie getting going. And so Hollywood is moving in that direction, which is why Dan Harari and I founded the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance to link the two worlds together, UAP
Okay.
world, Hollywood world. Hopefully, our friends and colleagues could participate in creating content, maybe even making a few bucks.
Yeah.
and it's been very successful. It's up to about 270 members, about half and half. There's a lot of pretty high level filmmakers in there,
Okay.
as well as some of our filmmakers and so forth. Anyway, and so then that goes down and gets a huge amount of press, hundreds and hundreds of articles. Farrah gets huge interviews. Millions of people have already seen the interviews and the movie. And then he announces what finally the title is going to be in his movie, and it's Disclosure Day. And okay, I'm hearing that and I'm going, yeah,
Okay.
okay, yeah,
Here
Stephen,
we go.
you're my guy. And of course, it affected me in a number of ways because one, in 2011, I created a website to promote World Disclosure Day. And
Okay.
World Disclosure Day was essentially my attempt to facilitate a day to honor disclosure when it comes. There was already a World UFO Day that was much more well known and is still going on and gets attention, but there was no World Disclosure Day. There was kind of an effort by a couple of fellows, but they weren't able to really maintain it, and I stuck with it. Created a site. It's still up. World Disclosure Day. I got thousands of people endorsed it and whatever. But what was World Disclosure Day? It was the day that a head of state confirms the extraterrestrial presence. Disclosure, capital D. So that was in 11. I came up with the idea of disclosure, capital D, around 2003. And so Disclosure Day has been a real big part of my work.
Okay.
But again, I don't have movies going out and books and stuff. And I know I never trademark anything because I'm an idiot. So, and I'm going, oh, wow, this is big. He is going to insert his importance, his range, his fame, his money, and so forth into affecting this process, which is literally going on in a positive way. Okay, so what did he do? He created an entertaining movie. It's not a blockbuster. It's not going to make $1 billion.
Yeah.
That's a different kind of movie. I
Exactly.
do not think it would have been possible to create a movie that had Avatar power to make $1 billion, $2 billion at the
Yeah.
box office
Yeah.
and still have the kind of message and whatever he
Yeah.
wanted to insert into this. Okay.
Mm.
So he did what he did.
Yeah.
And I tell everybody, if you've seen it, see it again. If you haven't seen it, when you watch this movie, you want to constantly focus not on what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
Are they going to get out of this problem? Whatever. What is the message
Exactly.
that Steven Spielberg, this the most famous filmmaker probably of all time, in many and legitimate thing,
And he's
who's
earned
worth
it.
about seven
He's earned
billion
it.
bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's earned it, and
He's
he's
earned
got
it.
all kinds of contacts where
Yeah.
he can get information, kind of think about and rely on. What is he trying to say? And in the very first seconds of the movie, we got an instant message. All right, instantly. Now, most people didn't register with them, but then there weren't too many people that watched that movie or have watched that movie from my perspective. Everybody sees a film from their own perspective, and the
Exactly.
perspectives are infinitely variable. Okay, we know that. But how many people were sat in the theater and watched that film, still 30 years involved in the political activism to end the truth embargo and create Disclosure Day? I don't think so. Might have been the only one on the planet. There, yeah, obviously I don't know, but if there is somebody else, I hope I find out who they are. So I'm watching it from that perspective. And from that perspective, the first seconds of the movie is a message. Pay attention. And they keep coming up. He incorporates almost every aspect of the fundamental reality that this is in various ways, in ways that kind of treat it a certain way that one can interpret as being his point of view. He does that consistently throughout the film. It sets up and it sets up. It all the little elements are dramatically in there. Pretty much all the various pieces that of the truth embargo for 80 years. Look what he's trying to do here, and the phenomenon itself for 80 years is kind of in there. All right, and then on top of that, there is an overlay that you could barely you could easily miss that is overlying the whole thing. And I will. This is not much of a spoiler, but of course I'm picking up on it big time.
Okay.
And that is throughout the movie, there are little reminders that at the time this film is the story is happening, we are on the verge of nuclear war.
Yes.
and a lot of people didn't see it. They
Yeah.
didn't pick it
Yeah,
up. It's
absolutely.
very, very
Like North
subtle.
Korea or
So
something.
you
Yeah.
take all that together, right? And then it works it up, and you get toward the end, and it's kind of, it's a fairly non, it's a traditional kind of ending. It's a kind of ending you've seen in a number of movies, but I think more spectacularly done than I've seen in other instances. But it builds and it builds and it builds until the ultimate message happens. And that is delivered in 5 seconds. Boom. And the movie is over.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that is my review. Okay.
Yeah.
For those that haven't seen it, take that into the film. I think you're going to be much more impressed with this movie. The movie, it will break even, might have done better, but because the expectations of people, not about it's going to be the great blockbuster like an Avatar, but that he was going to do something. He was going to impact this issue in a really heavy way, was so high that when it turned out to be an interesting kind of fun movie and they weren't picking up on those other messages,
Yeah.
they started bad mouthing it. And word of mouth can really hurt a film,
Yeah.
right? So that dropped down its overgrowth substantially, though I think in the long run it's going to make a lot of money
Oh, it's
because it's
gonna
going to be
for
shown and
sure.
reshown and reshown.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's Disclosure Day. Well,
Yeah.
go watch it and then just wait for the last couple of seconds
Yeah.
and then think real hard about what was Steven Spielberg trying to say to the world, to the American government, to the American people with this film that he spent several years crafting under strict lockdown.
Exactly. No, for sure, 1,000%. And yeah, I don't want to give away anything either. And I do see that, yeah, there was that whole thing with the nuclear war sort of building up and everything in the background, for sure. And the ending was kind of interesting.
Subtle.
It was very subtle, but it was sort of like, I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, okay, fine.
No one went into that film expecting that ending. I'm
No,
almost positive. There's
no,
just no way
absolutely not.
they
No.
expected it. And that's a great ending when
Yeah,
it completely catches
exactly. Off
everybody
guard.
by surprise.
Yeah. They were expecting
And
close
those
encounters. I think that's what they were expecting. I think a lot of people, the reason why a lot of
people,
people were like, oh, I went to the film and, I think it's because they were expecting close encounters. They were expecting ET. And I think you're right. I think that if you have not been following the process and following the movement, it's not going to hit the same way. And it's not going to land the same way because you're sort of like, oh, but I'm just here for a good time. And, I'm here for Independence Day and, Will Smith and all that. No. So that's not it at all. But I feel that people who are watching the podcast tonight, and especially this kind of podcast, there's a lot of different podcasts out there talk about UFOs and all that. But I think what makes this podcast special with some other podcasts as well is more the fact that people, at least in this podcast, understand the woo aspect, which I think gives a different perspective, if I may be so bold. And I think that the woo aspect is not looking at it from an Independence Day superhero, Michael Bay type of film. That's not it. Or Avatar, all that kind of stuff.
no.
It's not it at all. I think that people who are watching this podcast understand the esoteric nature, which there's a bit of it in there, but also the message to humanity as a consciousness. This is here to sort of change our consciousness and to understand that, we have to come together as a people and that we see the better world that we can be a part of if we engage in a peaceful way with these different groups, these different extraterrestrial groups. And I know it's not made the type of thing that other people might talk about, but I feel that that's what's fundamental, at least in this podcast and for this group of people. And so, you can, like you said, when you watch a film, you come in from many different aspects and different angles. But I feel that the thing that did it for me, because I saw the film and I cried. I was just sort of like, oh my God. And I was hyperventilating because, as some people know on this show, again with the woo side, a lot of people who watch this podcast have had contact with different extraterrestrial beings. And so I know that I felt a great deal of awakening in that sense because it's bringing to light something that I've experienced. And it may just be my experience, but I know it's the experience of a lot of people who watch this podcast. And so a lot of people that I've been connected with have said that it affected them at a very visceral level, because it's sort of like, why are we ignoring our other members of the family? And you can take that for what it is, but
Well,
that's
look,
something,
first of all, I don't consider contact, in other words, people that are having contact, that's not woo.
Okay.
That's real,
Yeah.
right? It's absolutely real. It's pretty interesting, it's profound, but it's not woo. Channeling, I guess, maybe, and there's other things that, I would, that I don't participate in.
Okay.
I'm pretty much nuts and bolts. I have
Yeah.
contact as nuts and bolts. However, it's not politically viable yet. And so they haven't had their day, but they will have their day. I mean, at some point, contactees are going to be some of the most in-demand people on the planet,
Yes.
but not yet. So again, look at his trajectory. I mean, I think he's gotten a Medal of Freedom. If he hasn't, well, he's got to get it, but I think he has already. Is it 1977? He puts out Close Encounters of the Third Kind, way ahead of its time, right? Way ahead of its time, and put that whole issue out there. And that was 77, and so that was like, let me think now, it was
Star Wars
like
came out in 77 as
13
well.
years before John Mack jumped into this thing, right? So he puts that out there, and then 25 years go by, and it's 2002, and he puts out his 20-hour series, Taken, which I think people need to start go watching. It's out there. You can find it. I was present when that came out. I was
Yeah.
present when they announced the Coalition for Freedom of Information, or whatever the hell it's called, to try to investigate the issue and all that. That was funded by sci-fi money, and Taken was a sci-fi series. So something was happening in 2002, and then 24 more years go by, and he does Disclosure Day. So you got three films that are 55 years apart. Each one one's a series, right? Three major projects that, in a sense, almost cover the whole thing, because Taken was an approach, a thematic approach to kind of describing the whole thing, right? But with a heavy emphasis on contact, right? But also on the truth embargo, but in a again, theatrical way.
Yeah.
But still another way of getting it across to people. And then, of course, this is a direct
Yeah.
engagement
It
of
hits.
the disclosure process.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So what 55 years of, I mean, I'd give anything to meet the guy. I mean, look, I'm talking Disclosure, capital P, 2003, right? I literally made it a proper noun. I worked on Disclosure Day for years. And so when the movie comes out, and I'm going, I'd love to meet the guy. It'd be like kind of fun. There were people that were teasing me years ago. This was way back, maybe 20 years ago. We'd be at some meeting, and they make a joke about, this is all working out pretty well because of the three Steves. And I'm going, the three Steves? They say, yeah, Stephen Greer, Steven Spielberg, Stephen Bassett, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And I'm
Exactly.
going, well, it's an interesting group, the three Steve the Tears. But there is this kind of interconnection that, well, maybe post-disclosure. By the way, since I think disclosure could happen at any time,
Yes.
if I were the distributor, try to keep that film in the theaters. But even if it's not in the theaters, if we get disclosure, it's going back in the
Of course,
theaters, and it might
absolutely.
drop pick up another 100, 200-300 million.
Of course.
So he's going to do quite well in that film.
He's going to be doing fine with
But
that. Yeah.
disclosure will help. I mean,
Yeah.
see that.
No, for sure. And I think that he's going to do well. And I mean, I think it's going to be similar to, I made this comment about, for example, like Blade Runner. Blade Runner is considered one of the best films ever made, but when it came out in 82, people were like, this is garbage. What's happening? Oh, blah. And like, I mean, it bombed at the box office, And yet
Well, this
now,
didn't bomb. This
no,
didn't
no, no.
bomb.
But I'm just
It didn't-
saying, that sometimes people weren't ready for it because it was just really like, whoa, as a film, and it didn't do well. But then, years later, it's seen as, oh my God, it's like this work of art, and oh my God, and if you went to film school like I did, you were studying that film and all that kind of stuff. So, I feel that because of Steven Spielberg, he had the weight behind him to put a film like this together, because I don't know if anybody else would have had the ability to put it. They'd be like, yeah, no, it's too weird. No. But Steven Spielberg, he really did it. And a lot of people are saying, well, Steven Spielberg, maybe there's a lot more than just a film. and I'll just leave it at that. But I wanted to know, Stephen Bassett, if you'd be open to taking some calls from some of our members tonight. If you'd be open to taking a call, some questions, sure. So, guys, if you want to call in and you want to, speak with Stephen, and if you have some interesting questions, we will open up the phone lines. I have my phone here, so I'm going to keep the phone line. I'm going to open up the phone line, and I'm going to ask my tech, and I'm also going to ask my moderator to post the number. So if you guys want to call in and you want to talk about disclosure, what it means to you, and if you have any particular questions for Mr. Stephen Bassett, then please go ahead. We're posting up the number now. And while we're waiting for
You're
calls,
going to post their phone number?
well, they have it in the chat, so they can call us here.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
All right. Okay.
exactly.
All right.
So they can call us.
Are you going to post the phone number of the show?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
post the phone number of the show, and then so people can call in and let me just see here. So if anybody has a questions, give us a call. Until then, while we're waiting, I wanted to. So I was going to speak with my tech. So how are we doing it? So we just have. Do you have the? And we'll have that ready to go. And then so we'll wait for the call to come in. But in the meantime, I haven't. It's funny because I haven't heard much. Oh, I think we have a call coming in. So yeah, I think we have a call. That was pretty cool. Yeah. Hello. Did you want to speak with us? Did you want to? What's your name, please?
Susan Johnson.
Okay, Susan. A nice. Thank you for calling in. So, what is your question for Mr. Stephen Bassett this evening?
Okay, there's been a lot of debate about how much of the files were disclosed on war.gov/UFO, and a lot of critique online says that it was this fuzzy UFO video footage, outdated video footage that didn't really amount to anything. And there's been a lot of threats circulating online from the various ET groups in the channel, the different people in contact with these ET groups, including experiencers, abductees, and contactees, and people like that. And they're saying that if this, like Ismail Perez is another one, they're saying if there's not a full-on disclosure by 2027 or 2028, that they up there are going to force the disclosure. And when they do, the proverbial stuff will hit the fan.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I've heard similar things. Not too worried about that. I think disclosure is very much at hand. Practically there. A lot of reasons for that. As far as the films that are coming out and the documents, and this is something I've hammered on for forever. It's I don't really care what's in those documents or film that they're pulling out. It doesn't really matter that much. It could be clear, it could be not clear. They're putting out what they feel like putting out. They're picking and choosing from quite a substantial archive. That's not what's important. And that's not what's been going on really for years now. It's not about when are we going to get that piece of information that finally ends the truth embargo. Look, the truth embargo is based on denying any of this exists, okay? And so the fact that we're now just actually engaging it as a real thing is what's important. But most importantly, it's not the information that's come out in what I think is now 4 tranches of material. It's the fact that for the first time ever, we hit another milestone. And the milestone was that the President of the United States formally required the Secretary of War to declassify some of these files and put them out. That hadn't happened. That is a presidential act, a legitimizing of the thing. And so, and then they came out. All right. And so, from the standpoint of the disclosure process, this is one more major milestone that gets us closer to a formal confirmation from the president. This is a process of building structure, not suddenly revealing truth. Um, I'm sure the stuff they put out in most cases is, in fact, at least not fake, though that wouldn't matter to me either. But it's designed to service what's going on, but only the president can end the truth embargo, not the Secretary of War by digging up some super duper video that's 4K. Because if they did, everybody, the debunkers would say it's fake. Okay, again, it's the
Okay, I have
process.
another question.
Uh-huh.
A lot of them are saying that they're not going to reveal everything because they're involved in a lot of the military-industrial complex, the deep state, and the other alphabet agencies are in bed with the negative ET scourge, the Nordics, the Anunnaki, and people like that, and they've been running the government from behind the scenes forever in the central U.S. And they're afraid to disclose everything because then they'll be held accountable by the rest of the human population because of the secret space fleet that's involved in everything. And then there's a lot of reverse engineered technologies like gravity and reverse Doppler effect and warp drives and stuff that they have that they're using, and they've reverse engineered UFOs, and then they're using those UFOs to stage false alien abductions, and they find people that have been taken into the real craft with the real aliens, and then they stage the false alien abductions, and they terrorize them and do painful experiments on them and extract information from them. And this is part of the truth embargo that must be revealed to the general public.
Well, one of the problems of a truth embargo is that by systemically denying the fundamental truth of something and obfuscating it and putting out disinformation and encouraging people to speculate as much as they want, as well as fakers and hoaxers and so forth, is you create a mishmash of stuff that is a massive majority of which is going to prove to be false. But that's not, I don't blame the people that are coming up with these speculations. I blame the government because they have no desire for us to actually arrive at a conclusive understanding. I think all of that is intriguing. I doubt that much of that is going to prove out. But it's kind of speculations that the truth embargo was going to generate. Ultimately, we will learn everything, not all at once. And
This is not
assuming
necessarily a
that the
truth
UAP Disclosure
embargo.
Act is functional. The UAP Disclosure Act is going to be soon expanded. They're putting they're resubmitting the second half of it again for the fifth time. Eventually, going to get the whole act with the review panel and so forth.
Who's
Which is going
submitting
to
it?
be
Who's submitting it, please? You said that's
Burleson is submitting it again as an amendment to a House bill.
okay.
And of course, there's already, I mean, at some point it's going to get passed. I mean, it's been 4 times, but you know what's been going on.
Okay.
And so there will have to be an act as robust as that. Plus, there's going to be more whistle and witnessblower protection, witnessblower and witness protection. Luna is working on that intensely, and so the process will get underway. It'll be legal. There will be subpoena power, and stuff is going to come through. Some will be held back a little too soon, but there'll be an accounting of that, and then it'll come in eventually, and the stuff will eventually come out, and in reasonable length of time. The world's people, and we're not the only nation that's going to be doing this. The world's people will pretty much know the entire history of the truth embargo, what the government knew, when it knew it, what kind of tech was developed, what new science understanding developed, what bad things were happened that have been discussed and dealt with through reconciliation and amnesty. In other words, the whole truth embargo needs to be understood because we don't want it to ever happen again, right? So it's all pretty much going to work out that way, unless a new dictatorial leader of some kind intervenes and tries to do away with the act, do away with the process in order to regain a new level of secrecy based upon whatever. And that's possible. There are no guarantees. But the work that has been done for all these 80 years by thousands of people and the new work is being done by very courageous members of Congress, both in the Senate and the House, as well as the work of tons of journalists writing thousands of articles, legitimate articles, not debunkers. There've been a couple of examples where a paper like the Wall Street Journal got buffaloed by the DOD and printed something ridiculous, but yeah, it's an exception. All of that work is going to prove out. And so while these speculations are intriguing, I don't service them much because they tend to put a bad, they put a bad light on the whole thing, meaning basically what these speculations are saying, you're not going to win. It's not going to happen. It's just all going to go this way and that way and so forth. And I don't think that
Well,
until
no,
that is fully justified,
interrupt,
I don't want that out there.
can I interrupt? It's not mere speculation. There's been documented evidence and everything to back up what I said. And it's not just something I learned online or something. It's something I experienced firsthand.
Again, I have my perspective. Others have theirs. And eventually it would be nice if we actually were able to sort it all out so everybody was on the same page. The government doesn't want us on the same page. It wants us all on a different page, running around in circles and worried about this and worried about that. It's an abuse of power. It's almost a crime. And my job is to get us to the point where we can agree on most of this, as opposed to disagree, which services the government's program. This is not the way to run a country. It's not the way to treat the public. So again, I focus on my issue, and I occasionally give my thoughts on something. That doesn't mean that I'm trying to debate somebody down or debate them into a submission or anything like that. No, I understand these things are out there. I try to deal with them in a way that is constructive as much as possible. That's about and I don't talk about things that I have no idea about, like yourself. We'll see. Let's end the truth embargo, and then we'll be able to have a much more, how would you say, clear conversation about all of this history, this crazy history. Okay, where are we?
So if
Who's
you,
wrong?
yeah, sorry, I always keep doing that. I always sort of put my voice down. But I just want to just say thank you, Susan, for speaking with us, and thank you for your question. And we are going to leave the lines open for other callers if they want to call in. I know what you're saying, Stephen, about how a lot of these things are being done by design. I have another comment here from our chat from Xenia Emerlinda, and she said these problems are being done by design and managed decline. And I agree with that. I feel that it goes back even to the Bible of the Tower of Babel, where let us go down and confuse people, let us go down and cause havoc, and that's what's really going on. And so as a people, we're being caught up in this game where we're being pitted one against the other, and there's a lot of confusion when really we have to sort of extract ourselves from this game, this matrix, and see the game for what it is. And once we do that, we no longer can be controlled, and the truth embargo can be chipped away at, even from ourselves. So I do truly believe that. I have a question for you, Stephen, and I know it's the dreaded question, but I do have to ask it anyway. You said that sorry. What?
Yeah, the dreaded question. I'm dying to hear this. Yeah, go for it.
So the dreaded question is, when it comes to disclosure, you said that it cannot come from the, from someone like Pete Hegseth. It has to come from the president.
Yeah.
So
right.
if that's the case, then how do you feel about the current American president? Do you feel that he's the disclosure president, or do you feel like, as some people are saying, that the reason why they're even releasing these files is to take away from this other scandal that's going on, with other files of women, and you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? So without,
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of confidence in that. I think,
Okay.
I think that it's easy to go there But the fact is, these things are happening, and they're going to be a distraction one way or another. But uh, in general, keeping people in the dark and not treating them like adults does tend to cause them to lean into these interpretations, right? And it's wrong, right? If you know the truth and you have a sense of what's going on, and you don't have to try to, you know, paint pictures. Uh, so the situation with the president is this: 13 other presidents since Roswell have had the opportunity to end this embargo, every one of them, because every one of them knew that these ET or this non-human tech was here. A lot of people, you know, again, and then under the truth embargo, without information, they're just making assumptions. Well, I mean, this president wasn't told, and that president
Oh,
wasn't told, and that's just too simple. That's not the way life is.
okay.
You're the president of the United States.
Sure.
You're also, before that, you're a pretty important person. You're incredibly powerful, or you're an incredibly wealthy person. Even Steven Spielberg worth $6 or $7 billion.
Okay.
When you are someone like that, people line up outside your office door with information they would love you to know,
Okay.
because they want to. Hey, this is something you should know. They want to
Sure.
ingratiate themselves. They want to be constructive, and
Just
and
so
maybe
you
they
know,
could make it up, but that's not.
yeah. Sorry, we have another
Go ahead.
call coming in.
Go
I'm
ahead.
so sorry, but can we take another call in? Is that
Sure,
okay? Yeah,
sure,
sure. So, hi there.
whatever.
Yeah, what's your name?
My name is Howes. Can you hear me?
Yeah. And what's your question for
Yeah,
Mr. Sorry, what's your question for Mr.
Bassett.
Bassett this evening?
Well, I'm just curious as to what the greater picture of all of this is, because based upon my research for decades in astroarchaeology and alien phenomena, and working with MUFON and so forth, the whole disclosure thing is important, but the end scenario of us starting wars with one another to the point where our civilizations collapse will only invite direct intervention by many of the species that have been visiting us for tens of thousands of years, and actually helped create our entire race in existence. All of our kingships and dynasties and everything. There's monuments of volumes of evidence in indigenous cultures around the world where they were here long before humans started to crawl the earth. And I'm just wondering, in the grand scheme of things, how does this all fit into place? Because we could literally, in that scenario, see a whole new renaissance of spirituality that's directly connected to alien intervention.
So, can you tell us what your
Uh,
exact question is then?
Well, my question is, how does the whole disclosure situation actually assist in us embracing species, from many different places in the universe, to enrich our society and civilization
Okay.
in a positive way?
all right. Well, whatever influence any of these extraterrestrial entities, and there's five or six, which I think they're extraterrestrial, and I assume they're from different planets. That doesn't mean you couldn't have two high-tech civilizations of two completely different species on the same planet. Of course, and in our case, if that happened, one was going to kill the other, but whatever. Um, Not much is going to happen unless we get disclosure. Um, their activities in ancient times, which I feel confident it was happening, and there's a lot of work has been done to try to show that. Obviously, we don't really have a lot of specifics there, and it's a long time ago, but there's enough indication that there's been this previous contact. Might not have been the same entities, probably wasn't, and it certainly is not the same circumstances of now. Back then, they were moving giant blocks around and building thingies with them. Here, we're already spacefaring. We visited several bodies. We have walked on the moon. We have on and on and on. We're into AI and everything else. I mean, we are a spacefaring high tech civilization on a very rapid rise. in terms of technological invention, which also includes technological weapon invention. So we're now a huge danger to ourselves. If we get space travel, in other words, if we learn to travel the way they do, then we're going to be a huge danger to anybody else out there that doesn't have the ability to defend themselves against our brand new spaceships filled with nuclear bombs. So this is a very different time. It's special. Right now, our ability to engage and understand and deal with this has been blocked by a policy spearheaded by the United States with the cooperation of all its allies and the implicit and tacit cooperation of the two major ideological control states in the world. It's China and Russia, and then China and the Soviet Union. So we're stuck. So disclosure opens up, or at least unlocks all doors. And then if we're willing to pass through or walk through that door, there's a lot of things that can happen very quickly. Until then, well, we don't know. We could speculate all day long, but speculation does not really give you the results that are needed to run the civilization. You need truth, you need advancement, you need scientific truth, certainty, things like that. You need an understanding of the way things are, not just fantasies about the way things are. Without that, you can't have an organized and productive world that's productive and not destructive. We're being denied that through massive classification, massive secrecy across a whole broad range of subjects, as well as massive expenditures going into how to kill each other. That is preventing us from doing research and also taking care of our own species. So we're screwed at this point. So we have to have disclosure. It is the only door that I'm aware of that we can go through right now that opens up these other doors. And if anybody's got a better way, I'm happy to hear it. No one's even attempted, I think, to bring it forward. A lot of people believe that a deity will be the one that saves us, the messianic thing. ETs are somewhat looked at that way, but they're not deities. But the idea of a deity coming down and just setting everything right has been part of human nature and religion for thousands of years, which reflects the fact that most people would like to have a peaceful, constructive world and not have so much suffering, because that's what comes when you don't have that. And so they look for that outside influence, which has been a deity for a good deal, thousands of years, of one type or another. Well, I'm not into deities, but I'm definitely into extraterrestrials, and why they may not have the powers that some of our deities have, they could do a lot. So will they help us? And the question is, well, if they're willing to help us, why haven't they? Well, we don't know what they have done fully. They may have done some things we don't know about. One of these speculations, which I kind of feel more comfortable about, it's not too crazy and wild, is that they have done some genetic intervention at some point hundreds of thousands of years ago in order to set one of the Homo lines on a course to eventually develop high-level mental capabilities and ultimately technology, because otherwise it would have taken forever, and they just wanted to speed it up, and we got the lucky number. That would not surprise me at all. It's not unreasonable. So in that sense, they may have intervened in a very positive way in the development, at least, of intellectual capabilities among one species here. Again, all this is interesting. I'd like to know it for sure. I'd like to have this laid out. I'd like to be teaching the history of the human race as based upon information provided by extraterrestrials as a generous offer to us. Hey, here's your history. Here's here's a DVD with 400 billion files on it, because we have very good tech. And you can research it and use AI and study it, whatever. That could be in our near future, because we need information that is true about our world now and the past and everything else in order to get out of this situation we've got ourselves in, where we're in a blind canyon and there's no way out, and it's all going to end badly. So I think the connection between our situation and their advanced engagement since 47 is one of the most important things that ought to be known by every living person on the planet. And so the disclosure movement has been one of the ways to get that message out. It's one of a number of key messages that's part of the activism to just end the truth embargo. It's providing certain key information, which is helpful because people are going to need reasons to support this. We don't need 80% of, just 6 or 7% of the world's people could lock this down in no time flat. That's the way things work in such matters. But they need a reason. They need to have an understanding. And that's what the activist movement is about.
Okay.
And much of it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your call, and thank you, Stephen, for answering. So I think we have time for maybe one more call if anybody calls in. But Stephen, I wanted to apologize. I interrupted you when you were talking. It's just that we had a call that came in, and so
Yeah, we didn't want to take a call.
Yeah.
Remind me, just the last thing I was saying there. What was I talking about?
I think I think I was asking you about the president, and I think I was asking about Pete Hegseth, and and we were sort of like saying, well, if he's going to be the one, and then you were saying about how it seems that there's been a lot of complicity between different governments in the United States. You said I'm not sure if you were saying something about China, because China seems to be sort of doing its own thing, like they're complicit in some ways, but I feel that China has its own perspective. Did you want to sort of dovetail on that one? Or?
Well, I don't use the word complicit. I think
Okay.
that China has tacitly gone along with the truth embargo.
Okay.
They don't block research, particularly in UFOs there. Same thing in Russia. But overall, they're not prepared to confirm ET presence at this point, and they have their own reasons. I think if our president does it, they will follow suit pretty soon, because every major head of state, every nation wants to be part of this. Ultimately, they're not going to sit in the sideline, in a corner with their arms crossed, going, "Well, we just don't believe there's ETs here. We're just not going there." Meanwhile, the world is moving forward at warp speed. So no, they'll all join in, and that'll be good. It is something we could agree about. It is something we could gather around to mutually engage. It will be one another way that perhaps it'll get us out of this mess. Why do you want to blow up a perfectly nice civilization when you could be traveling the stars in 5 or 15 years? Right? I mean, then blow it up here doesn't make sense. Just because what? You're just really very fond of your particular form of government? Or you think you're just special? And then, once you have confirmed that we're not alone, it's easier to talk to people about the fact that you do understand that these advanced species out there are looking down at us and thinking we're out of our friggin' minds.
Yeah.
They're laughing their ass off.
Yeah.
Okay, we're a joke. We're a disgrace in a lot of ways. You don't want to be a disgrace. Grow up. Put your big boy pants on, your big girl dress on, right? I mean, all of this is worldview stuff, right? It seems simplistic, but it's a kind of thing that everybody's going to kind of get.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to decide, is this a good reason to actually start fixing stuff? Is this a good reason to actually have some significant treaty, conferences and actually ban all nuclear weapons in the world? That seems like, well, that's impossible. No, it's not. You can do it right away. Right? We've done it before. Get it down to zero. There may be an odd nuke out there. We hunt it down and put those people in jail forever. The point is that a reason to do that? Is that a reason to do a number of things? Right? And I say yes. And let's hope we get a chance to find out.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It will not be boring. And again, let me emphasize, 13 other presidents could have ended this truth embargo because they all knew it was real. No, they did not necessarily have the same amount of information. So they didn't do it. So now Donald Trump is president, and it looks like the music could stop, and he gets the last chair. Fine. Perfectly fine. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Okay.
And I encourage him to do it, and I believe that it will benefit him. Does it mean that everything else that he's dealing with is all going to go away? I don't think so.
No.
But a good thing is a good thing. The right move is the right move.
Exactly.
And I assure you, there have been plenty of instances in history with someone that would not be particularly popular with our thinking today, did something very important that helped out.
Absolutely.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
You'd be fool not to.
Absolutely. And before, I know we're sort of like closing up for the evening in the last couple of 10 minutes or so, but I definitely feel that you're right. I personally, it's funny you're talking about the different presidents. I think that Bush Sr. had the most information. I think that he was a part of the CIA. He was at the head of the CIA. And so I feel that he probably had the most information. It seems, I think that the Republican presidents have more information than the Democrats, but I mean, that's a whole other story. That's just my opinion. But
Maybe, but Bush Senior could have been the disclosure president.
he could have.
Something
He could have.
emerged
Yes.
that it was possibly on the plate.
Yeah.
Should he have won the second term, right? And it would have made a lot of sense because he would have been in a perfect position to do it and make sure that people didn't get too wild and crazy about it and make sure it had a strong national security aspect and be believed. He would have been the right one, but he lost. Don't know for sure. He's never spoken about it. If we get disclosure, he may very well come forward and no, his son may very well
His son,
come
yeah,
forward
I think he died.
and say, my dad was thinking about doing it or whatever. But he didn't. And then, of course, a lot of years have gone by and a lot of wars have taken place and a lot of people have died. So
Yeah.
let's get this done.
Yeah, let's
right?
get
Let's
this
it
done. Yeah, so I think that we have, like I said, I feel that we are definitely on the verge of something. I don't see this being like, oh, another 20 years. No, no, no. I don't see that happening at all. I see that, and like, again, I do take the woo to a certain degree just because I've had those types of experiences and I know that channeling is not for everybody. But a lot of people have channeled this information that between now, there are a lot of people are saying it's going to be this month. And a lot of people are saying that definitely by 2027, we are definitely going to have a disclosure of some sort. And then after that, there's definitely going to be a contact. So I'm still on that path, and people are welcome to join me, or people are welcome not to join me. That's fine. But I definitely think that something is happening because I feel it. It's just in the air. It's like this hanging fruit that's just like boop, when I just grab it and there it is. It's
Well, one thing
something's
about
up.
prophecies and so forth that are kind of out there, you have to be careful because there's a number of them. One of the better known ones is called the Iron Dog prophecy. Are you familiar with the Iron Dog prophecy?
No, what is
Okay.
that?
It's the year 2030. Wait a minute, I think it's 2030. And the reason it's called the Iron Dog because in the Chinese,
Astrology?
universe,
Yeah.
that you have two things that they track years on. One is animals, and the other is metals. And the animals are like in sequence, and the metals are
Yeah.
not. And so there's more animals than metals. Anyway, the point is that 2030 falls on a year that is the year of the dog and the year of metal. And I think it's iron. And so for that reason, the prophecy is called the Iron Dog prophecy. And it's been around for quite a while. It goes way back. And so the fact that it refers to 2030 is intriguing to me. Anyway, the prophecy is massive world destruction that results in a loss of a third of the population dies in that year, literally gone, third of the population. So not all prophecies are necessarily as attractive, right, as some of these. So, but it's cool, right? I we love prophecies. So I'm hoping the Iron Dog is not going to happen. But you want to know something? I can think of 3 or 4 very good reasons why it could very well happen. And so,
Yeah.
what can I say? Those ancient Chinese may have known something. But could we prevent it? Yeah, I think so. I think prophecies can be overcome, even if they're locked in some sort of way that some people saw some things in the future. I don't think the future is written, but
No.
it's some sort of a projection of from now to then. But yeah, there's a number of things that could generate a third of the population dying off in a year. But I think we know most of them. So if we wanted to, we can just fix that. And the Iron Dog doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So what can I say?
Exactly. Well, fair enough. I would counteract that. I'd counteract that with the fact that we have choice, and that if we're looking at it from a quantum physics perspective, we can choose a timeline where we don't do that. And I think that right now, when you look at what's happening in the Middle East, a lot of people are saying, we don't want these wars. We don't want this. We're not interested. And now more than ever, people are becoming a lot more vocal. And I think that there's going to be more and more power to the people as we take that. And yes, the powers that be try to convince us that we're not powerful, but we are very powerful beings, and that we can make a choice and we can affect the decisions and the path that we want to take. And so whereas maybe 25, 30 years ago, people would have been like, oh no, I don't care. No, no, no. I think that now people say, no, I do care. And I want a different future. And I'm not interested in dying for something that I don't believe in. I'm not interested in dying for a country I don't believe in. And I'm not interested in continuing this path. So I think that if people have a will, and we can affect the will, and we can affect our future, which is not written, we can decide to take a different path. So that's just my 2 cents.
Well, we could be vocal.
We could be vocal.
And want something different, but we've got to focus, right? In other words, we've got to actually focus on something that needs to be changed. For instance, one of the biggest risks of AI is, and it's already in the works, is high-level intelligence AI is literally going to be able to design molecules, bio things that we normally could not come up with. It could literally kill half the population of the world, right? And so that's underway now and working. So you take that out to 2030. Yeah, if they come up with one of those and somebody decides, yeah, we need less people, boom, that's one.
Yeah.
A nuclear full-out nuclear war would easily kill a third of the people, probably even as much as half. So that's two. All right. So we need to want it different. We need to move to change our ways, but we got to pick those things to change. So they need to focus on that. We need a massive citizens movement to contain AI in a way that it doesn't destroy us but serves us. And we need to get rid of the nukes.
Exactly.
And is there a massive anti-nuke movement in the United States? No. Is there AI is too new, so there's not much of a movement there. There was plenty of people starting to speak out.
Yeah, they are starting to speak out.
But in terms of the Iron Dog, yeah, we don't have a lot of time on the old Iron Dog, so look it up.
We'll
Google
see.
Iron Dog project.
Well, we'll invite you back to the show just before it happens, and then we'll take it from there. But I just want to say
invite me back in 2030 for sure.
We'll invite you back. For sure. You're definitely.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it. You're on the calendar already. So I wanted to say thank you so much, Stephen, for coming to speak with us. It has been such a pleasure. You are an absolute star in this field. And none of this could have not happened. I mean, yes, Stephen Greer definitely has a lot to say about it, and I'd love to have him on the show. We'll see. But I feel that you have a lot to say, and I feel that you have played a very, very massive role. I know that I've seen you in action for a long time, and you've had a big impact. And I do feel that your impact and the work that you've done will be recognized, definitely. And you know what? I'm going to put it out there. I think it'll be recognized by 2030. So you know what? In 2030, we could have gone to war, and we decided not to because we have people like you who are leading the way.
Well, I want to be more active, so I'm a nonprofit, so tax-deductible contributions are more than welcome. Also, the New Paradigm Institute is a nonprofit, and it's doing great work. And so those of you that got into crypto early, they would welcome some tax-deductible donations.
Sure.
And what was the other thing I was going to say?
Yeah.
It was... Lordy.
But what is the website? What is the website? Just I know it's in our on our meetup page, but if you could tell us the website and some of the events that you have coming up.
Well, not events, but paradigmresearchgroup.org. That's my nonprofit. Newparadigminstitute.org is Danny Sheehan's nonprofit. Right? There's also the Disclosure Foundation. Chris Mellon runs that. That's a nonprofit. And there are others that are forming, and I think it's becoming safer to do philanthropy with these groups because the stigma's gone, and to the extent that people that have been very fortunate in their life that often may donate to a number of the causes to support this work is great. I mean, you really would be involved in something historic, incredible, to help fund the organizations that are at the front of this, and there are many. Happy to give somebody a list if they get in touch with me. Again, all pretty much all nonprofits, but never this field has never gotten that much funding because the truth embargo was extremely effective in stigmatizing and demeaning the issues. So philanthropists are very sensitive about their image and what have you, and they didn't want to be associated with it. Government got a win there. They got many wins. That's why the truth embargo lasted. That's over. And so now I think this is one of the most important targets to donate to in the planet for the reasons we've discussed. And so, we'll accept all. Now, if you're not an American citizen, you don't get a tax deduction, but there may be a tax deduction, a tax-free operation in your country.
Okay.
Whatever. We'll take all the support we can get.
Absolutely.
Great talking to you. Until next time.
Yeah.
Arrivederci.
I'm sorry?
Arrivederci.
Arrivederci. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us tonight. And thank you so much, Stephen, for being with us. We really, truly appreciate it. I'd love to talk with you after the show. And again, everybody, if you can, make a donation to the New Paradigm Institute and the Paradigm Research Institute and what Chris Mellon and everybody.
Paradigm Research Group.
Paradigm Research Group.
Yeah,
exactly. Paradigm Research Group.
Yeah.
And so I know the moderator has posted the website in the chat, so check it out. And we'll hopefully have Stephen back on the show when the disclosure happens, and when it does happen, and we'll have you back on the show. Okay, and it's going to be very soon. So clear your calendar, Stephen. Okay. All right.
It'll be the beginning of my world speaking tour, post-disclosure.
Oh, yeah. Perfect. Okay, you have to come to Montreal first and foremost. Anyway, thank
Absolutely,
you.
Of course.
Of course. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us. We look forward to seeing you soon. And if you are on our mailing list, you know that we have an amazing discussion group coming up tomorrow with Josh Rutledge and Mercy Whitney. So you want to join us for that tomorrow. Until then, thank you, everybody, for being a part of the show. And we look forward to seeing you next week or tomorrow for the discussion group. And we look forward to seeing you when disclosure hits. So take care, everyone. Have a good evening. Take care.